Hello, and for today's episode, I wanted to walk you through the process I go through when determining the value of a card, checking its worth, and determining if it's worth to invest in picking up a copy or a playset of a card. This involves various websites and resources that I utilize, a little bit about my investigatory processes, what I check for, and also the different types of classifications I use to make sure I'm not wasting my time and money making an investment that might go to waste. To get started, I really focus on what I want. I have lists and lists of cards I'm looking at, cards I want, cards I need, cards I have, cards I'm speculating on. I won't go over the entire list as it's quite a handful, but I suggest a notepad or an Excel sheet to track something similar for yourself. So say you want to build a particular type of deck. Now, I like Legacy and mostly play Legacy, but recently I've been getting into Pauper a little bit and picking up some copies of cards for decks that are performing well so I can test against all of them. And let's start there for today's exercise. There are two main sites that I use to check on recent tournament results for Pauper decks. This includes this one I'm on right now, which is mtgdecks.net. And then I also check on MTG Goldfish pretty regularly to see how all these different decks are doing, maybe who's playing them, the total prices, and what the percentage of the metagame might be. There's also other resources that I look at, such as social media posts around the internet. Most of these decks and these formats have popular discords where the pilots of these decks are constantly discussing the changes they make and the new sets, how they might affect their deck. And so I kind of gather all my resources from around the internet and go to these sites to kind of see what's up and check on the metagame, see what catches my eye. So once you're on these websites, there are really two main ways to see what decks are performing well. This includes checking the metagame shares, which just kind of captures all the percentages that these sites collect. It might not be an exact total representation, but it's a pretty good idea that the higher the metagame share, kind of the more popular the deck. And then you might be able to check the trend levels here, sort of similar. There's not a huge sample size, but it gives you a good starting point. So just keep in mind this data is not all-encompassing. It combines paper and the online results, and it kind of skews the data a bit for online players since they prefer quick, like explosive decks, easy to play, are going to win and play a lot of matches, and the sideboards are going to vary differently, wildly from what you see online than what your local metagame might be. But again, this data is a wonderful starting point whenever you're looking at trying to pick up some singles and find out what you want to buy. So the deck I am particularly interested in researching today is the blue-red deck. It's been around in Pauper for a while. It's recently picked up a couple of new cards, a couple of different iterations. So I wanted to explore a little bit today and see if there's any new cards people are using and what I might need to pick up that's not in my collection. So the first thing you want to do is pop open some of the recent decks that performed well. I have a few here, and check some of the differences. Now, the easiest way to do that is to maybe open up a online diff checker. The format doesn't always match up, but you can kind of see maybe the differences. Over here, they use 4 of this card, 2 of this card. Maybe some of there might be different sorceries that they use, or different mana bases, different sideboards. It's kind of easy to see quickly at a glance what the major changes might be. Once you get good at looking at these decks or familiar with the format, it'll catch your eye really quick. and make it a little bit easier to decipher. But for now, I'm interested in looking up some cards that I might not have and then making a decision within my budget on what to pick up for this week. So for Pauper, let's say this is between $10 and $15 just for the purposes of today, and you can adjust that to whatever your budget might be. Looking at these lists, personally, I'm interested in Tune the Narrative. I don't think that is a card that I have in my collection. So I would want to jot that down on a notepad and maybe look for some other cards that I'm interested in getting. And let's see here, the Crimson Fleet Commodore I might have in my bulk, but I'll still make a list to make sure I go and check that. And then this guy uses Crimson Fleet Commodore as well. And let's see. Checking some other cards on the list. Perilous Landscapes might be one I'm interested in. Sacrifice it to search for an island, mountain, or plains and put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. It also has cycling. Looks like a couple of copies are used there. And let's see if there's any others I want to keep an eye out for. This breath weapon, I might be interested in picking up a few of those to see how that performs in my decks as well. Lastly, I'm looking at this Deduce, this one of Deduce, and I'll have to check my bulk for that also to see if I have any. Luckily, I sort all my bulk by color, so it shouldn't be too much trouble digging for it, but you never want to buy cards that you might already have, so it's always a good idea. Check your bulk, maybe ask your friends, see if they have any copies you might be able to trade for or they can offload to you. But for the purposes of today, I'm going to start with those four as a starting point and kind of show you the process that I go through as next steps in order to pick these cards up. So the next steps include researching the prices, and for this, I mostly use 3 websites. And getting familiar with these websites, you can gain quite a bit of information on what the cards are going for, what they've gone for historically, and how much you might end up paying for them. I mostly utilize MTG Stocks, which is this page here, eBay, and TCG Player. Although if you have a local game store where you pick up commons, you might be able to make some trades, use store credit, or find other players that can help you out in getting the cards that you need. Or if you need them more immediately, that might be a better go-to source. But kind of researching the prices online before you go into the store is always a good practice. Now, let's start with Tune the Narrative here. You want to type the card into the search boxes, and I'll start with MTG Stocks. You can see the price trend of the card. It's been pretty flat for this one. Sometimes you might see the card spiking in the past, which will give you an indication that there might be some collectability or some interest in the card. You can see the all-time highs and lows, which is pretty handy, and that gives you also a good list if the cards happen to be in other sets or have other printings. They will list that here, and then it will also show you any other recent decks that might use that card. So if you're interested in playing another format as well, you can kind of gauge the interest if you want to get a playset or more than one playset if you happen to be using the card in other decks. Now, there are other sites too, like the eBay and the TCG Player. eBay, it will be pretty clear how much you might have to pay for shipping on the card. At TCG Player, its information is a little hidden sometimes, and generally most of the sellers do have a minimum buy order, which might skew the prices up. So over on eBay, this is where I make the bulk of my purchases personally. The minimum amount for most cards is generally $1. You just kind of have to work around that restriction. The sellers aren't making a whole lot of money by shipping the cards for anything cheaper than that. But it is a good start, especially if you're looking to get play sets or foil cards, just keeping in mind that the most minimum amount you're going to pay is $1. And there are quite a variety of different search terms and different categories and different formats that you can look for. It's pretty versatile in how you search. Personally, I prefer the price plus shipping lowest first and then list view to make it easy to just scroll down through all of the sellers. Sometimes you have to be a little patient if you decide to bid on the items, but if you wait till the last minute, you can kind of sometimes maybe get some good deals if you're patient. So familiarize yourself with how to search and the search terms, and sometimes you can snag some really good deals on cards. When searching for foils, though, you have to be wary because some sellers like to include non-foil in their results, and they will end up at the top of the foil list. So I generally avoid buying from those sellers. To me, it's a little scummy to list non-foil. If you just leave it blank, it generally knows that it's not a foil card, but some people just put that in there anyway, so just be a little bit wary about that. On eBay, you can add the card to your cart without purchasing or watch it for later. I'm clicking this little heart here. And then you can also check completed listings if you are logged in. And that's always helpful to know historically if the card's popular and if it's been selling well. So taking a look at eBay for Tune the Narrative here, I've typed it into the search bar, hit search, filtered for what I want, and it's brought up this $1.14 plus some tax for a single card. Generally, that's not a good idea for one card, especially a new common. There's plenty of them on the market. So I usually also look for the foil version, which is just a few cents cheaper, or times 4 of the non-foil. And under $2 for a common, that's an all right deal. You might be able to find a better deal at a card store where you're not paying shipping, or we'll look online on TCG Player to see kind of what's comparable there. But then I always make sure, even if I'm not exactly in the market for a foil or a full play set, you do want to look at the times 4 foil just to see if it's a good deal. Even if you're only using 1 or 2 of them, you could always trade back the other ones or use them for another deck. So in this case, it's $3.45 for 4 foil retro frame Tune the Narratives, which to me, this would be the one that I would go for. So I would either watch it or add it to the cart, or add it to my spreadsheet or my list, just to keep an eye on it and make sure that once I'm ready to make my complete purchases, I have easy access to it. Let's go over to TCG Player and kind of do the same thing here. You want to familiarize yourself with how to search for the card, just typing it into the top and making sure it's on Magic the Gathering. We'll kind of bring you the results of all the cards. And then it's a little difficult sometimes on TCG Player to find the foils, especially on the mobile version, but you want to open the filter, click foil, and you see it's a little bit cheaper here. What you have to keep in mind is on TCG Player that most of the sellers have a minimum order that you need to reach in order to get the free shipping. So unless you're buying $50 worth of cards, you're not going to get the 30 cents value. So if you're making a bulk order, it might be able to save you some money in the long run. If you're just looking to pick up a couple of play sets, eBay might be the way to go. TCG Player is also handy, just like on MTG Stocks. It kind of shows you price trends, most recent prices, how many people are kind of buying them, and how many are available for sale. This is all good information to inform you on the price of the card, the popularity of the card, and if there might be some other different versions of the card that might be cheaper. as well as like the legality of the card. It's always handy to know as well. Generally, I go through all the list of cards I want or am keeping an eye on, saving the links and prices in a spreadsheet as I keep track of where the best deals are, and I want to make sure I'm within my budget. Then once I have all the cards I want, I complete the purchases all at once instead of one at a time to ensure I know where the money is spent and how much the tax accumulates to, and ensure that I have a list of everything that I need that I can reference quickly, such as the seller information, the tracking arrival dates, and if it arrived. And I won't have to be scrambling around if there are problems that arise. This might seem like a lot of effort for just a few dollars worth of cards, but when it's more high-end purchases like dual lands or reserved list staples, it's essential to make sure you're not looking around in your email or searching random pages to try and find the information you need. It's all going to be right here if you have to sort out any dilemmas. It's good practice to get into these habits, not only for your Magic the Gathering finances, but real life finances as well. So hopefully this gave you some insight on how you can start building your collection. If you're interested in building a new Commander deck, expanding your existing collections, or dabbling into a new format, these rules can all apply. Leave any questions in the comments or on my social media, and I'll be more than happy to try and reply to you and give you some more insight or add some steps to the next video if I update this one. Thanks for watching.